Society spent your entire life telling you that being alone is a curse. But Carl Jung discovered something far darker about the rarest minds in history. He realized that having no friends is often not a social failure, but the inevitable result of reaching a level of consciousness that most of humanity simply cannot keep up with. Stop for a second and think about this. Have you ever felt that silent knot in your chest when you realize you have no one to call at midnight? No one who truly understands what goes on behind your eyes? Society already decided its verdict before you even opened your mouth. Being alone means you're a failure, someone who couldn't maintain relationships, someone who pushed everyone away out of pride, or a personality flaw. Jung spent his life dissecting the human psyche, and he found a pattern that still makes people uncomfortable today. There is a type of mind that, upon reaching a certain degree of clarity, simply stops tolerating social noise. Not out of spite, but from pure exhaustion of meaning. And the question that will stay with you until the very last second of this video is this: is your isolation an open wound called depression? Or is it the ultimate cost of a process Jung called individuation? You're about to find out. But I'm warning you right now, the answer isn't comfortable. And most people who hear this distinction for the first time prefer to pretend they never heard it at all. The first mistake is believing that connection is measured in quantity. They taught you this early on. Whoever has the most people around them wins. Whoever eats dinner alone loses. That's the metric pushed down your throat by schools, media, and social networks. And it's also the shallowest metric that exists to evaluate an entire life. Because there is a rare, unsettling type of mind, hard to name, that doesn't sign a contract with the world under those same rules. It's not the shy person who freezes in front of strangers. It's not the bitter person who closes the door out of fear of getting hurt again. It's something else. It's someone who feels too much empathy, who processes information too fast, and because of that, can no longer pretend to care about the superficial. This kind of person doesn't hate people. They love people in a way most can't handle receiving, because they see straight through the facade, and what lies beneath is usually exhausting. Look closely at the pattern. You don't hate people. You're just tired of acting for them. Tired of the rehearsed script of empty conversations, automatic smiles, and faking opinions just to fit in. And here is the paradox no one tells you. The more you mature on the inside, the fewer actors you tolerate around you. Your isolation isn't a flaw, it's just a filter. Think about the story of a man who spent 15 years described by everyone as the nicest guy in the room. He went to every birthday party. He answered every group chat. He never said no to an invitation. Never disagreed out loud at a full table. On the outside, a rich social life. On the inside, a deep exhaustion he couldn't even name. Because no doctor could find anything wrong with his tests. Until one day, sitting at a party he had helped organize, he realized he couldn't remember the last time he had actually said what he truly thought about anything that mattered. He wasn't sick. He was renting space inside his own social life, paying with his authenticity for a bill that never ended. When he slowly began turning down invitations and cutting empty conversations short, his label changed overnight. From nice guy to strange, distant, cold. Nothing inside him had broken. He had simply stopped pretending he was fine with the price it was costing him. To understand how we were taught to misread this signal, we have to go back in time. Not too far, just enough to reach Jung's office in Switzerland, decades ago, cataloging patterns that repeated patient after patient. Jung gave a name to the mask we all wear to fit into society. The persona is the social face, the character rehearsed for work, for family, for birthday dinners. The persona isn't a lie, it's survival. The problem is that most people never take off that mask. They forget that there is a face underneath it. And there is also the shadow. Everything we repress, hide, and deny even to ourselves, just to be accepted by the group. Jung's thesis was simple yet devastating at the same time. You only become whole, you only undergo the process he called individuation, when you can see both the persona and the shadow in others, and most importantly, in yourself. And here is the detail no one tells you. Once you learn to see through another person's mask, you can never unsee it. You walk into a party, and instead of hearing the joke, you hear the motive behind the joke. Long before Jung, Arthur Schopenhauer had already mapped out this exact trap. To him, deeper minds require deeper environments. When conversation stays surface level, the discomfort isn't a petty complaint. It's physical pain. This has nothing to do with feeling superior. It has everything to do with the burden of seeing through illusions faster than the rest of the world. And this same logic operates on your daily autopilot in ways you might not even fully notice. The daily trap isn't solitude. It's the compulsion to constantly prove that you don't need it. You accept the invitation you didn't want to accept. You smile at conversations that don't interest you. You comment on photos you don't actually admire. You agree with opinions you internally reject. And you do all of this based on a simple equation no one taught you to question. Social presence equals personal value. The more you act, the more accepted you feel. For an hour. Then comes the exhaustion. A specific kind of exhaustion, completely different from physical fatigue. The exhaustion of playing a role that isn't yours for far too long. Do you recognize this burnout? It shows up after crowded parties where you didn't exchange a single authentic sentence with anyone. It shows up after meetings where you agreed out of politeness, not real conviction. Worst of all, you repeat this routine day after day, thinking you're being social, when in reality, you're draining finite psychic reserves to maintain a performance you never even chose to put on. And here is the paradox no one wants to hear. You aren't antisocial, you are hypersocial. To a fault, burning emotional energy on a currency that gives you nothing real in return. Breaking this cycle requires an attitude that most people reject before even trying, because it costs heavily in the currency society values most: instant approval. The shift begins the moment you stop pretending to care about the trivial just to be accepted. In practice, this means walking away from conversations midway. It means declining invitations with a simple no, without inventing long excuses to justify yourself. It means ignoring messages that exist only to drain your energy. Understand one thing. This isn't rudeness, it's triage. The second move is raising the standards for who enters your inner circle to an almost non-negotiable level. Proven loyalty, not words promised in passing. Real depth, not a performance saved for special occasions. You will realize very quickly that this new standard eliminates 90% of the people currently taking up space in your schedule without taking up any space in what actually matters. And the third move, the hardest one of all, accepting that being alone with your own mind can be far richer than being surrounded by shallow connections. I'm not talking about isolation as an escape, I'm talking about solitude as a deliberate choice. The difference between locking the door out of fear and locking the door out of standards. Marcus Aurelius wrote his private meditations alone at night in the middle of military campaigns, because he knew that silence was the only place he could audit himself without external noise. He wasn't running away from men, he was running away from the noise men create when they gather without a purpose. But the world around you won't accept this change easily. And that is the part no one prepares you to face before you begin. When you stop performing your usual availability, the people close to you feel the shift instantly, even if they don't fully understand why. The labels will come. You'll be called arrogant. Comments will drop about how you've changed, how you think you're better than everyone, how you've grown distant ever since you started diving too deep into these topics. Pay close attention to how this mechanism works. The people who accuse you of pulling away are almost always the ones who benefited from your previous role. The always available friend. The ever-ready shoulder to cry on. The automatic yes that never questioned anything in return. Your change accidentally exposes the mask those people still wear every single day. And an exposed mask creates discomfort. Discomfort then becomes an accusation disguised as concern. The truth is, many social groups operate under a silent pact. Don't change, don't grow, and don't wake up, so that we don't have to face our own stagnation. When you break the script, even in total silence, even without any drama, you become a walking mirror no one asked to look into. The group's natural reaction is to pull you back into your old role, using guilt, using irony, using that classic sentence, "You've changed." Spoken like a criminal charge. And here is the first hard truth of this video. They aren't wrong. You have changed. The only question that truly matters is whether that change is actual evolution, or just escape disguised as wisdom. And the pushback comes in predictable, almost mechanical waves. First, the phone call, just to see how you're doing. In reality, it's a test to check if you've grown tired of your own boundaries. Next, the persistent invitation to that same old spot, repeated 3 or 4 times, as if sheer repetition could shatter a boundary you already set inside yourself. Finally, if none of that works, comes the sharp comment disguised as a joke, thrown right in front of other people to shame you back into your old position. That is the price of stepping off the script. A group doesn't easily let go of someone who carried the emotional weight of others without knowing it. You were the shock absorber, and a shock absorber that refuses to absorb is always called broken. Long before anyone admits it simply stopped accepting the weight. However, the worst enemy isn't on the outside. It's in how you interpret your own silence when no one else is watching. There is a sophisticated, almost industrial self-deception that anyone who has ever read a book by Jung risks falling into, using the word individuation as an elegant excuse for bitterness disguised as wisdom. Healthy isolation and toxic loneliness look identical from the outside. That is exactly why so many people confuse the two. Both leave you alone in a room on a Saturday night with no one to call. But inside, they produce opposite results. Toxic loneliness feeds resentment. It whispers that the world is hostile, that no one is worth your time, that you are alone because others are weak or inferior to you. It stems from unresolved pain wrapped in well-articulated intellectual superiority. On the other hand, the mature state Jung described produces the exact opposite effect: compassion, not contempt; peace, not silent vengeance locked away in your chest. You still love humanity. You just choose a safe distance with clear standards. It's the difference between slamming the door shut and closing the door with a calm hand, because you know precisely why you're doing it. If your silence today is filled with accumulated rage against those who let you down, that isn't individuation. That is an open wound using sophisticated language to avoid getting healed. And an unhealed wound always collects its debt, usually in the form of deeper isolation, but now without a single drop of inner peace. Knowing this, you only have one immediate way out, and it demands brutal honesty with yourself before changing any external behavior. Audit your own silence. Ask yourself without holding back, when I think about the people who pulled away from me, do I feel peace, or do I feel a desire for revenge? If the answer is revenge, resentment, or a need to prove them wrong, you haven't reached individuation at all. You just switched cells without realizing it. If the answer is genuine compassion, even from a distance, even with zero contact, then you are on the path Jung described. And the next step is practical. Deliberately reduce the number of shallow connections you still maintain out of habit or accumulated guilt. This comes with a price, and no one is going to sell you this part in the usual motivational speech. The price is sitting with fewer people around you for a while. It's losing the automatic validation that came from elevator small talk, group chats flooded with memes, and meetups that existed only to fill an empty calendar. You will feel the void before you feel the peace. That is the correct order. And anyone promising to skip that stage is selling you a lie wrapped in wisdom. But those who cross that void without turning back along the way find on the other side what most will never experience in an entire lifetime: rare, authentic relationships, and an inner presence that no longer depends on an audience to exist. There is a second, more concrete exercise for anyone who wants to move from theory into practice today. Take the last 10 contacts you replied to out of obligation, not desire, and ask yourself one by one, does this person add depth to my life, or are they just occupying space that healthy solitude would fill better? You don't need to cut anyone off dramatically with speeches or long explanations. Over-explaining, by the way, is always the first sign that you're still asking for permission to be who you decided to be. Simply reduce the frequency slowly, naturally, without drama and without warning. Cold, calculated, and quiet. That is how you build the new perimeter. Within a few weeks, the group around you reorganizes itself like water finding its own level. And what remains is usually smaller in number, but greater in substance. A swap every man who traded quantity for quality knows is always the right trade. Now the illusion is over. The choice is no longer invisible. You made it this far, which already separates you from the majority who close the tab at the first sign of discomfort and run back to the familiar noise. Having few or no friends is not a sign of weakness. Often, it's the exact price paid by those who chose depth in a world trained to worship the surface. But if that same sentence is used as an excuse for stored resentment, it becomes the worst lie you can tell yourself for the rest of your life. From now on, you know how to tell the difference with precision. And knowing without acting is just another coat of polish over a wound that remains open on the inside. If you reached this point in the video and recognized your own story playing out, type in the comments, "I choose my silence." Not as a cheap slogan, but as a commitment you're making to who you become starting today. Hit the like button if this hit home. And right after, click the hype button as well. Each hype acts as a small resistance against an algorithm that prefers pushing distraction over clarity. It's the simplest way to ensure this message reaches the person who needs to hear it right now. If this channel is helping you see what most pretend not to, consider becoming a channel member. It's for those who don't just want to watch, but want to live this philosophy every single day. And subscribe, because the next video picks up right where this one ends. I won't spoil what it's about. I'll only say you won't want to hear it from someone else first. Jung used to say that he who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakes. You've already started waking up. The only question left is, will you have the courage to keep your eyes open, even when it costs you the company of those who only wanted you asleep?